usual.
Hi, Joe.
Hello, Vicky. So something slightly different today. I think this is week, I don't know, week 19, 18, 19.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
think it's 19.
but I want to, because normally you just do it a week, I ask you a couple of questions, you do a summary of your week, but I wanted to do a deep dive today into something that you've been struggling with the last few days, which is external pressure around food, and to show
Yeah.
people how they can deal with this and to give them a snippet into one of our coaching calls, if that's quite all right with you.
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. So can you tell me what's been going on with regards to the pressure around food?
Yes, so this week it's been my daughter's 18th birthday. So as you can imagine, we're surrounded by a lot of family, a lot of food, a lot of birthday cake, that kind of thing. So we did, and this has come up for me before quite a lot, but this week has been really challenging. So we did a surprise party for her and she didn't have a clue because she was saying she didn't want to do anything, and got all the family round, and I just got some food in and had a cake made and whatever. And I made sure, because I was getting the food, I made sure there was like salad and chicken and things like that that I would eat because I want to eat it, not because I think it's the right thing to do, because I want to eat it and I know that it makes me feel better physically and mentally when I'm eating well. It just helps me. So I made sure it was there, but then you've got the external pressure of your daughter cutting the cake and handing the cake out and not wanting to eat the cake, but everybody saying, oh, you've got to have some birthday cake, it's only your 18th once, that kind of thing. So I find that really difficult, and I find it difficult because my kids love baking as well, and it's a really good thing that they've got this skill to, they can independently, even the 10-year-old can independently make some cakes or biscuits or things like that. And I don't want to stop the creativity, and they can cook other meals as well, but if they cook something or bake something, and then I say, no, I'm not going to eat it because I'm trying to eat like something nutritious and I don't really want to eat that, it's really difficult to get the balance. Because if I wanted to eat, if I chose to eat it, absolutely fine. And I'm not saying that I won't ever eat it, but I don't want to be eating it constantly. So I have a real battle in my head really of what to do, because it's not as if I'm saying I'm never going to eat it, because I'm really not. And I do decide, that I decide that maybe at the weekend that I might have this, that, or the other, but it's planned in and it's controlled. But when they decide to do something like that, what do I do?
So you said there about the battle in your head. Can you explain what that looks like?
Um, so it's that's a hard one. So it's like it's kind of like I feel guilty. It's mum guilt for not sort of. It's not that I don't appreciate it or anything, but for me now, I'm all about trying to look after myself in terms of what I eat, and my own mental well-being is massively impacted by what I'm eating, if I'm exercising, if I'm taking downtime, all of those kind of things that are things that I can't control. But then I have this like mum guilt on me going, but they baked you a cake, you can't say no. And if it was only one cake, that would be fine, but they do it all the time, especially in the summer holidays, because they love doing it, and it was raining all the time. So, they just do these things, and it's really hard. And I don't want my children to think it's bad to eat those things, because it isn't. It's just within your control kind of thing.
And I think it's really important here to recognize kind of the portion side of
Yeah.
things, because there's obviously going to be a balance, and it's not like we're saying don't eat anything. I'm
Yeah.
cautious as we're recording this that it's trying to fill in the gaps for people who are listening.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the guilt, then you say, what would that say about you as a mum if you don't eat those things, or you say no, thank you?
I don't know. I think it would make. They would probably go, oh, why not? Why not? Why aren't you going to eat it? I've put all this effort into making this, and you don't want to eat it. And even if I try to explain that, look, and I never use the word diet, never, ever, ever. I just say I'm trying to eat really healthy because it's good for me. It's good for me in terms of my well-being overall, and I don't mean just physically losing weight, I just mean my well-being. I hate having sugar spikes that really don't work well for me whatsoever. I find that I'll go a bit hyper and then drop, and it's not good for my mental health. So I've explained all of this, but they just don't get it, and then I feel guilty. I feel massively guilty.
Okay. And so I think here then, because our next question was going to be how many times have you explained this, or in what way have you explained it? Because there is the idea that you need to tell people things 7 times before they hear it. And so maybe there's a repetition piece here and phrasing things slightly differently. And when someone's baked a cake, that moment of here's a slice, saying no feels like a real rejection. Whereas maybe you do it before, or you do it the next day, or a couple of days later, when their enthusiasm for the cake has long been forgotten, is to say, no, it really doesn't make me feel very good. So next time you do it, I'm just not going to have any. I really appreciate the gesture, but this is how it's going to happen. And you may find that the message lands differently then.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because it is at that point where they kind of present you with this thing that they've put all their sort of effort into, that anyone would feel rejected, wouldn't they? And it's just like, that's a good point to sort of discuss it afterwards, and maybe it's even sort of on an individual level, because I've got 3 children, maybe it's on an individual level, like chat to them separately, but it is really hard, and I don't want to seem like I'm sort of not, I don't want them to think that it's a bad thing to eat certain foods, because I don't want this whole, I hate the whole, that I hate the whole sort of diet culture kind of thing, and Sustain's not about that at all. So this is just my latest stumbling block, Joe, and there's many of them, as you know.
Is this because you're one of the things you've said here a couple of times is, I don't want my children to think eating high calorie food is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But they have a very different history and backstory to you. They don't have a life of, not to put words in your mouth, a life of dieting. And so is that your story, or is that the actual situation? If you say, no, thanks, I don't want cake, they are going to think that cake is a bad thing.
Yeah, probably my story, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It is. Because they've never been made to sort of, not made to, but I've always been quite conscious that they didn't want to eat all of the food on the plate because they weren't hungry. I've never sort of said to them, oh, you've got to eat it all up because you won't get this, that, and the other kind of thing, because I'm really conscious of that. But yeah, it is probably my worry, and the external things that you hear, you're reading all the time about, kids eating disorders, and especially seeing as I've got 3 girls, it's a lot of, there's a lot of pressure on social media on the way girls look. So it's my thoughts, definitely.
And that ties us nicely. Why do you think that eating cake is a bad thing, or can be a bad thing? Where have you got that from?
Personally, it's just by personal experience that if I eat something like that, I get them spikes, and then I go really tired, and then I'll probably, I just don't feel good eating sugary things. They don't work really well for me. I never realized until I stopped eating as much sugary things how they don't serve me well, and that is definitely from a sort of mental point of view. I do have a massive high, and I feel like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Do you know what I mean? And then I'm like, oh, I'm tired, I need to go to sleep. And I've got such a history of doing that sort of late on an evening, of kind of starving myself through the day, and then being so hungry that I'll have this sugar spike, and then it just balloons into loads of different sugary things, and it's just not good for me at all. Other people might be able to sort of, I don't know, other people might feel differently, but for my journey, it doesn't work well. Nothing like that works well for me.
I think in my experience as well, it's something I hear a lot of saying, like, I don't want my kids to think that eating cake is bad. And therefore, if you read, behind the lines a bit there, or between the lines, they believe that eating cake is bad. And you said, you have a physical experience of that, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people feel great eating cake. The reason it's seen as bad is dieting culture and weight gain. is that excessive cake is criticised in weight loss circles and criticised in weight, if your goal is weight loss and from a health perspective. And I think that and this is where it starts to get really murky, because having a slice of cake, having half a slice of cake, a couple of bites, is not going to blow out anyone's diet.
No.
The issue that I see a lot of the time is people will eat 3 slices of cake twice a week.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's that justification of, I don't want my children to think eating cake is bad. Does that mean you need to eat 6 slices or 3 slices? Where's this line? And everyone's got to pick their own line. And the fact that you don't feel good off it would suggest that, or my suggestion to you is that there's going to be a point here where, so you talked about the mum guilt, is you probably just need to accept that. So we've spoken before about anxiety and these feelings of anxiousness that you can't get away from them. So you need to accept them and feel them. And that's the same with the guilt. Because if you had a friend who was gluten intolerant, you wouldn't make them eat a slice of bread.
No.
So actually,
and I don't feel guilty about, like I don't drink, I only have caffeine like early on a morning, because I think I do. I must be a person who maybe does feel sort of quite spikes with different foods and things. And so I don't have caffeine after sort of 9 o'clock on a morning, and I don't feel guilty about going, I'm not having that because I don't have caffeine. Don't feel guilty about that at all.
So there's this story about cake, isn't there, that's being built to something that actually it's an invisible wall. It's a phrase that I've taken from my coach that I really like, that you don't see it's there until one day you feel it and you go, oh yeah, I'm creating this story about cake. And actually you're looking at it from one perspective. I don't want my kids to think cake is bad, but do you want your children to understand boundary setting? And do you want them to be considerate of other people's physical health? Because that's important as well. And actually there's a different way of looking at this. And, if I look back at my childhood, was there a time, that we build these stories up? But what I'm saying is that my mum not eating a slice of cake, I don't remember whether she ate the stuff I baked or she didn't eat the stuff I baked, because if she didn't eat something, there would have been a reaction to it, and then it passed, and you don't remember. This isn't for your children. You not eating a slice of cake will not be the traumatic event that you think it is.
And it's all this catastrophizing that I always do, isn't it? It is, absolutely. But I hadn't really thought of it like that. Like I never do until you break it down.
And that's why it's good to dig into these things. So is there a way you can, and again, it's now finding the way that works best for you. Doing it in front of your family at your daughter's 18th birthday party is not the one. But is there going to be an easier time to do this? Is there a child who bakes more often, or who is more resilient to this, or I don't know. That's for you.
I think there's a point, and I think that talking to my eldest daughter and just explain it, she'd get it. She absolutely would get it, and then it sort of eases down she'll sort of, I can talk to all of them, but she would sort of say, oh well, that blah blah blah, and she would kind of because I think that siblings, they always stick together, don't they? When they hate each other until something happens, and then they all stick together. So actually I need to speak to them separately about it, definitely, because and like you say, not when they've just spent hours making something lovely, beautiful, they put all the effort into it. So yeah, absolutely.
Really good.
Oh, you've gone silent.
There's your challenge then, is to implement that over between now and next week and see what happens and report back.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Very welcome.